So once we sort of create that environment, then it becomes, how do we go about managing the diseases and insect problems on the golf course? So we often, and you have been sort of a poster child for this, where we've started to use predictive models. But I would really say the biggest story I would tell anybody about Bethpage and our IPM here has been the success you've had with annual bluegrass weevil. Right? Back in the day, this was a place that generally got ravaged in one way, shape, or form with annual bluegrass weevil. The chronic use of pyrethroids as an adult application was less and less effective, and I remember Jennifer Grant saying like 85% of the weevils here were pyrethroid resistant in the population. So yeah, a lot of challenges there. Why don't you take a minute and talk a little bit about the way you tackled the annual bluegrass weevil problem versus sort of the many blanketed applications we used to have to make.
Right. Well, part of the, like Frank was mentioning, we have issues historically with annual bluegrass weevils. Now on the green course, the solution was all curative, like no, basically, and that I don't even mean curative as sprays. I mean curatives of, can we reseed the areas? How do we do that? Can we predict where they might be? Can we scout? Can we cut the rough a little shorter? We were trying a lot of different methods and to varying degrees of success. Typically, I think a lot of the things, Frank and I have been looking to the future for 25 years, and I think some of the things that we talked about 25 years ago, we can now with these predictive models, we can measure, whether it's Cornell's model, Michigan State with their growing degree day trackers. We have our local Cornell Cooperative Extension sends us growing degree days from the airport a mile away, so we use that quite often as kind of like the bellwether to start checking on those.
So you're gathering more information to make the decision, both from models and predicting. But one of the things I remember is that it was a matter of everybody just started getting those 2.5 gallon jugs, pouring some soapy water, doing setup, pouring the stuff out, come back, counting, and you did what many would believe to be very simple, but I would say is revolutionary. You wrote the data down. Remember these conversations about, sometimes writing it down, you remember from year to year, so that's informed you as well. The models, but you've already now told me you got enough data and have done this enough that you got a really solid window when you know you're going to have the most effective application window.
Right. I guess it would be like kind of taking a Google map of the whole country, and then these predictive models kind of get you down to Bethpage State Park, but then realizing, hey, we want to spray, this area. That really gets down to ground truthing it by the staff, by the superintendent.
And monitoring the population.
Correct. So we get, now these models are really good, so we can get to a certain point and go that way. Now we've also, I would say, it was over maybe 15 years ago when chlorpyrifos was sort of getting on a lot of people's watch list, like they banned it for use around schools. And at that point, the park director had said, hey, we should stop using this. So then we didn't stop using it cold turkey, but we used it on the green course. We didn't make the preventative, we didn't make the adult spray for ABW.
Right.
So
you went to just a larvicide
correct.
spray.
So we went to just a larvicide spray, and the control was pretty similar, and actually over the years it's probably gotten better. But having 5 golf courses also helps for scale of experiments like that, because we did the green course one year, the next year we did the blue and the yellow with the green course, the next year we did the blue, the yellow, the green, and the red.
Yeah. So now you've abandoned almost all adulticide applications.
Right, and then we waited another year and we did it on the black course too. So the black course none of the courses here spray for adult weevils anymore. We just go for the post sprays. That's really based on growing degree days, and Mike has crew going out there.
And now you have many more products. I mean, in chatting with Ben McGraw last year about annual bluegrass weevil, he literally said out loud, I don't think this is a major problem anymore. We both have the ability to predict and identify when we need to spray. And we have a variety of products, and maybe not as many on Long Island, but still enough products that are very effective when they're applied at the right time.
Right.
I always felt like when we were using pyrethroids, we never knew.
It was too cheap.
We'd count, right? You'd flush, we'd count, we'd spray, and 2 days later there were more. Because they would migrate in or survive, or we would miss them, or there was a variety of reasons. And again, adulticides are just sort of reducing the adult population, but not helping with necessarily the damage. They're still going to lay eggs. They're still going to do their thing. So having the larvicide application has really helped. Now, since you got all these different products, the other thing that we used to do was we used to count the number of times we sprayed as a way of determining pesticide reduction. And then we started using the environmental impact quotient, the EIQ model.
Correct.
And you were one of the first ones to say, oh, just, you give me a number and I can figure this out. Now, we've been doing this now on 15 golf courses for the last 12 years. So we have a lot of data of what you've actually done. And been really fascinating. We were going through it last week. The state park golf system is well below, close to only 40% of the EIQ value. The environmental impact of the pest management program is only about 40% of the national average. So the national average is a certain number of EIQ units, and we're only 40% of that across the state park. So I think in general, this is a place where you've put it into action. Has it been hard? Because people say, I got to look at this. And Frank's going to give me a hard time about the Daconil, and now 28 tebuconazole applications.
Right.
So how does that work out for you practically?
So, there's a few things. Typically when Frank and I would discuss the EIQ, the first thing, of course, was efficacy. Did the product work?
Yeah, it's got to work.
So if it worked, then it usually came down to dollars and cents. Frank mentioned tebuconazole. We use tebuconazole because it's cheaper. And then Frank said, well, some of these newer DMIs are now
softer.
The EIQ is softer, but they're more expensive. So can I get more funding for that? Do I utilize the early order program credits for maybe some more of those products to do tricks like that?
Because it's hard to justify, right? The average golf course superintendent.
You want to make money for the club or the...
Well, it's got to work, and fit into your application system and be cost effective. Why would you buy a product that's 12 times more, right? They're both EPA labeled. Everything you're doing is legal with them. But based on our environmental impact, we're saying this one has dramatically more than that one. Almost all the new ones are much softer. And I tell you, one of the consequences I think we're developing from this is that pesticides really, I think, are becoming less of a worry. The older ones like chlorothalonil really are ones we're going to have to start moving away from dramatically. And the softer ones are really soft. And I think consequently, we're seeing an increase in algae. We're seeing an increase in moss in some places. Places where we're having trouble with problems we never used to have because the pesticides were actually probably controlling them on the side and we weren't even noticing them. So getting less toxic, being more environmentally responsible is also creating challenges economically and new challenges from a pest perspective.
And some of those challenges aren't even on us. We talked about a product, it was Bacillus lichen-formus, and I believe it was EcoGuard, and that's now off the market. The company, I guess, wasn't making enough money on it, so they let the registration expire.
Exactly right.
And that was a nice product for us. We used to use it on greens, like maybe every 4, 5, 6 weeks. It was a nice resistance sort of break where we weren't using a traditional chemistry, and we would always get 7 days out of it, but they stopped making it. So now we have to look for other options, combo products, and we're trying to use frac codes to avoid resistance.
That's right.
And it feels like now there's so many combo products, it feels like you're overlapping chemistries.
It's impossible.
Almost every
Use
week.
a lot of 3s and 11s.